Hi, everybody.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing this
I'm fine,
evening?
thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine. You sound great. Actually, you look just like me. We've got the same headphones.
Exactly. How is everybody tonight? Thanks for everybody for coming.
Yeah, it's great. We have a really good audience this evening. A few regulars and a handful of new people to our OMA virtual program. So that's really exciting.
Aha.
So, Mark, tell us a little about yourself. Tell us about your practice. How'd you get started? What attracted you to this very distinct style of art making?
Well, historically, I mean, it's been basically since birth. This whole, I mean, this particular practice is a result of, I guess, my childhood. I grew up in the art world, and vis-a-vis my father, who I was born in San Francisco and born at 8th and Geary. And at that time, my dad was head of the art department at San Francisco State. And we then moved sequentially to different places during his career. We ended up in Washington, and Dad was head of the arts for the State Department. And he was a very well-known American educator, and he was the head of the arts and education for the State Department. And when I was a little boy, he went to Russia in '59 as a representative for the State Department to kind of, he was the first cultural emissary to sort of break the Cold War. You know, a woman that we knew from UNESCO, Dorothy Frost, went. And then we went back and forth. I've always had roots in California, and we ended up in Philadelphia, where I finished high school. And he was head of the art college here called Moore College of Art. And anyway, to make a long story short, I was just surrounded by art my whole life. A lot of really cool artists, great artists, came through and exhibited at the museum at the college, and went to all the great museums. When I was a boy, he took me to Europe, and we did all the great museums when I was in Europe. Bought an old VW and tooted around Europe, all over. We ended up in Copenhagen and went to all the great museums. So I kind of was surrounded by it, both contemporary and classical art. So when I was, really young, before I started making art, I saw all these amazing paintings, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I was intimidated because they were so brilliant.
What were a couple of paintings that really influenced you? This was one that came up earlier.
That's Bacchus Caravaggio. The Caravaggisti in Caravaggio, of course, was Southern, and the Caravaggisti, his influence went all over Europe, and especially up into the Dutch school. And but we looked at all the great museums and galleries and so forth. And I loved Caravaggio to begin with, and I was pretty amazed. I was attracted to the northern schools, the Flemish masters, Bosch, Steen, Bruegel, uh, and Bruegel the Elder, Peter Claes, Hals. So those artists really struck me before I ever started painting.
When did you actually start painting?
Good question. I started painting when I was 16.
And did you do this very traditional, the traditional oil painting, large format, all of the stretching the canvas, the gessoing, that kind of thing at 16?
Actually, I was secretive.
You're secretive.
I was
Secret art
secretive.
making.
I was secretive because I was so it kind of, I was more of a writer. And well, this slide that just came up has to do with the actual physical making of it. But I started painting quietly in my room by myself and didn't show anybody. I took art classes at the prep school I went to. And my dad caught me. He came in to my room and found me doing a watercolor.
Oh no,
Yeah,
not a watercolor.
yeah, which I never really touched again. I did a little watercolor, you know,
Mhm.
but and he was like, whoa, maybe you should pursue this. So I was still in high school, and I ended up going to art college early. I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Before that, I did my senior year at Philadelphia College of Art. I just started painting, you know, and trying to figure it out. But that was all traditional classical training, you know, materials and techniques, anatomy, composition, cast. Something that people don't do too much anymore, though I know they still do it at the academy. They do cast drawing
Mhm.
and art history, and it was the basic stuff. I first started seeing trompe l'oeil when I went to Europe with my dad. And this is the inside of the Sistine Chapel, right? This image that's on here now, that's the inside of the Sistine Chapel. And it's a vaulted surface. I mean, it's a vaulted ceiling, right?
Mhm.
But when I first saw it, it was painted like, next slide. There we go. It's painted so it looks flat. And I was just astounded. So I was intrigued by kind of the magic of it, you know?
Yes, that is
Because
a really good way to put it. It's a
yeah,
really magical way of looking at things.
yeah. And to me, it's very mysterious. And I thought, oh my gosh, how could anybody possibly even do that? And of course, you know, this is another universe, this type of work here. But I was astounded. Andre Mantegna frescoed the ceiling of the Ducal Palace, and he was a Renaissance painter. And it was this marvelous, it looked like clouds and skies. It was just phenomenal. So I was blown away by it. And I thought it was just extraordinary. And so that's what I remember first seeing it. But then when I was painting, basically I used the trompe l'oeil as only a means to create sequential ideas and impact. I don't want to use the trompe l'oeil just for the trick of the trickiness. Okay. So it's a tool by which to create sequential mental observations, questions, et cetera, et cetera. The first time I painted a trompe l'oeil frame was simply because I just thought, well, it would be fun and I could do it. And when I was in the 70s, I did some work at there at Independence Hall, and I made a trompe l'oeil foam marb floor cloth for Independence Hall.
Wow.
And so I had some technical means of doing it back then. And at the same time, I learned a little about faux bois, which in French means faux is fake, or imitation, bois is wood, fake wood. So I just did it for fun. I just did it because I can do it for fun. So
Yeah,
that's
actually that's interesting that you brought up faux bois, and then there's also faux
faux marb.
marb. Yeah,
Foam
and
armor.
that's something you really encounter a lot in certain churches in Europe. And it's like, oh wow, this incredible marble altarpiece. It's
Exactly.
no, it's not.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes
And
it's done better than others.
it's purely technical.
Yeah.
And once you get it down, uh, it's actually not as hard as it looks.
Hmm.
So,
I bet we could all just get, no, I don't think so. I think it looks pretty incredibly
but
technical.
some of the next slides
Yeah.
shows some of these different trompe l'oeil artists.
Yeah, yeah, because oh yeah, this one, yeah.
This is Cornelis Gibrex, and I actually saw this painting when I was 14. Sean Michael Deborah, how big is that one? This particular painting, somebody's asking?
Yes, yes. How big is those? That's a good point. Actually, I'm not sure
The
how
beer,
big this one is.
this one's not big. It's maybe in inches. I know what it is in centimeters. This is probably 18 by 20, not even 20, 25, or it's
And
small. And I
that's
saw
kind of the
this,
size you work as well, just for
right.
reference, because I do know that all of the images in this show this evening, we did not put sizes. I forgot to do that. So
Oh,
yeah,
well,
that's roughly
that's okay.
the size that you
But I saw this first time when I was 14 in Copenhagen. And I was there a few years ago. It's still in the collection. And it's a wonderful painting, and it's sublime because it's the back of a painting.
yeah.
So
Except for it's not really the back of the painting.
no, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
So
then,
oh
and
yeah,
then
go ahead.
and this is Pito, John F. Pito. And this is called the Poor Man's Store, I think, right? And he went to the academy as well. He's a 19th century painter. And they're a lot of fun. And they have some little bit of social, his in particular has some social commentary, shall we say. He made one painting of a cupboard door with a cup hanging off it. It's called The Cup We All Race For, something like that. So that.
And when was this artist working? When was Pito working?
I don't know if somebody's asking if there's a significance of the number 5. Actually, I don't know, Connie. I don't know. He's a 19th century painter, probably died early 20th century. He went to the academy, lived in New Jersey, and William Harnett, who is probably one of the next slides. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
This is his famous painting called The Old Violin. And it's a particular school, and in and of itself, just to make trompe l'oeil paintings is, for me, not enough. But to use it in part for emphasis, it creates a lot of opportunity. So.
And then, so it's clear that your entire living history has been like strongly influenced by classic art and some very big names, some very famous works of art. And as you see here, and this is an artwork by Mark, you can see that incredible wooden not frame, just paint on this artwork, but you can also see that you are referencing classic art in this artwork. So what inspires you to make those choices for which works to represent?
Well, I've been working on this love and war theme for 10 years or more. And a lot of the work historically has been narrative. And I'm going to turn off the chat because it's hard for me to focus when the imagery, in other words, where was I? This is from a Rodin. Rodin made a sculpture called The Kiss. It's very famous. And it's a wildly romantic image It's called The Kiss, as I said, and it's it's balanced on top of war, and it's a precarious balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like it's about to fall over.
Yeah. So we're all trying to keep balance, and this frame here actually is actually it's actually not a frame. They're
Stretcher
stretchers,
bars.
right? They're stretcher bars.
Yeah.
But the little blocks I use as a tool as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that particular one, yeah, the balance of love and war. Okay, and then this painting. Aha. I'm just trying to get this technically going here with the. Yeah, well, so this painting also has the stretchers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are elements within it. I stole a little section of a Van Eyck, the Arnolfini wedding portrait,
Mm-hmm.
and then Munch. That's a little figure from the one of the Munch paintings, and then I used the effigy of the mannequin figure. So it's what we all deal with, isn't it? You know, love, marriage, kind of the fear of it, stepping into the unknown. He's got the little AIDS. This painting's like 22 years old, so 25 years old. He's got the little AIDS
The ribbon.
ribbon. Yeah.
And this
And
is this is a portrait of the artist. This is you.
No, that's no. This is called
Some other artist.
this is called the wedding portrait, right? Or wedding.
Wedding portrait.
What's the title of it? I forget. Yeah, wedding portrait. So it's not. It may relate to me. I don't know if I'm going to go all that way, but you know, we've got the autobiographical element of the drawing item, and then the little bit of color in here in the glass. That's just a compositional device to hold that area. You'll notice that classically, the compositions are based on the golden rectangle, and a lot of them have this triangle, which provides solidity and movement. We got to keep the eye moving, right?
Right.
Right. And then there's the target that sometimes we hit the target, sometimes we don't.
So it's funny you brought that up, and then with the previous one, the blocks that say war, we see a lot of these recurring motifs throughout your work, actually. So yeah, let's see the next slide. Tell us about these recurring motifs. The target paper figure is one of them. What inspires that? How did you choose these recurring imagery?
It's basically a specific choice which generally relates to a broader question or observation or emotion to investigate a question. So it's a formal device physically in the painting, and it stimulates the ideas. The target represents all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually originally found the target when I was the idea came to me when I was in the gun range.
Wow.
You know, and I thought, wouldn't those be interesting to use? Can we go back to the slide right before this? Yeah, thanks, Adam. So there's two here, right? And then we have Lady Liberty sleeping, right? And she also is in a target, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are we going to wake her up, or are we going to leave her sleep? And then over here, this is a section of a Caravaggio where the Judas was betrayed. So you all can put your own ideas together as to what you think about that. And then this is a painted frame.
And then actually something that's recurring in all, maybe not every painting, but almost every painting, is something we didn't touch on earlier when you were talking about yourself, but there's a lot of strong American imagery and along American themes, like Lady Liberty laying down there. And is that inspired at all by your personal history, the long historical records of your personal family?
Well, we all live in America,
This is true, yes.
and we all benefit, I believe, by what this country can give us and has given us. And we established it rebelliously, right? And yeah, I do have some familial history. My middle name is Adams. And so I kind of, my mother-in-law and my mother, but my mother-in-law actually pinned down the history. And yeah, we go back to the second and fifth president very closely. There in Massachusetts. So yes, and I've lived all over the world. And when you live outside of the country, it gives you a perspective on what we have here that sometimes I think people forget. That's my opinion. We have things we need to change and improve, of course. But so yes, there's history. And then also because I live back east and it's in Philadelphia for a while and exhibited there for years, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. It's very classically American there. And I used to buy and sell and collect Americana and American furniture. So it's just part of what I do. And then this is the famous Litz painting of Washington crossing the Delaware, which is the heart of the target, right?
Yes.
And then we have Sisyphus down here. So
carrying the eternal load on his shoulders.
yes.
And then another recurring thing we see in your artworks is they're flames. That subtlety of the fade from intense red to black is just that the handling of materials is masterful.
Yeah.
But the actual meaning of the flame recurs in a lot of your artworks.
Yeah, the flame represents spiritual light. And all the wonderful things that come with that. And light illuminates everything. All right. This is two hearts. So we have two hearts beating in this painting. So yes, the flame. I mean, we've been painting it for years, right? It goes back to forever, 500 years, 400 years. But I'm intrigued by you and using it to create other ideas. Then the other side of the coin is the flame turns into fire, which creates destruction. This is something that we all are seeking, right? Some truth, which is kind of hard to find these days. Because there's a lot of obfuscation of reality. And then down here, we have a little monk down in the corner here who's studying to figure things out with his own little flame. So,
well. And this is one that is not in the exhibition, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
I painted that last summer. And well, I'm just going to let people look at it and think about it. I like this one a lot. So
yeah, I like personally. This one a lot too. I mean, and the texture of the fur, that's actually something that I feel like is unique in this one. We don't see a lot of furred animals in your work, but it's sumptuous.
It has to do with sacrifice
Yeah.
and certain theological approaches to life, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
This
So
this guy is fun. I just have to say, because I saw this one at your house when I visited, when I did the studio visit that very, very first time. And this is exactly what he looks like. We might as well be looking at a photo of this particular little, I don't know what you would call him, a puppet or a little model.
well, actually, this was a wonderful American folk artist from the South. His name's Howard Finster. And this is a section of one of his cutouts. He's a kind of, I bought this years ago at auction, right? 25 years ago. And very simplistic. Most of them are cutouts. They're simple, but they're very effective. And so I bought it because of the imagery, and I like Howard Finster's work. He's gone now. And he's kind of pointing and looking for the light too, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of that, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this one. And you reference a very famous painting with the Old Glory there, and that is remind me the artist of that work, who does something similar with the flag in the clouds.
Bierstadt.
Yes, that is right. Yes.
Right. That's a reference to Bierstadt, and then this is a reference to Caravaggio.
Mm.
So,
And then
what else do we have?
the blocks, the toy blocks, like in the war painting.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a collector, and I love things, and I love wonderful things that create ideas. And sometimes I will find an object or be in a particular place or see a particular bit of light that creates the seed for a work. And so this box I had, I found in a junk shop, and then I made this painting. This one's in the Crocker Art Museum up in Sacramento. And so it has to do with the passage of time.
Yeah, I like the effect of the lengthening shadows from the blocks on this one.
Yeah. That's what we're all looking for. And this young man's truth is his truth, and everybody has a different truth. We have to respect everybody's different, diverse truths.
It's true. And that is in a way that it reflects also how you approach interpretation on your artwork. As we've talked about before, you don't like to get too literal and too explanatory between, like, oh, this is why and this is why. We're all creating a truth in the way we interact with your works and interpret them.
And that's the idea.
That's
In other
right,
words, the works are really conceptual. In other words, they're traditionally made, but they're very conceptually oriented in terms of cognitive thought. And that's something we all deal with too, right? So these are all just human issues that we deal with, right? And that's a French painting that was just fabulous. So
yes, it's all very foundational concepts that we're all considering in our daily lives. And then it's just the juxtaposition of the historic interpretation, the childishness of the blocks. And I see the little
yeah,
kid kind of
and I like them to be fun too, because we don't want to be too serious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then we got the little Cupid here. He's keeping a secret. So what else do we have here?
The mannequins, which I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but we mainly see the mannequins in your earlier works from the 1990s. Would you say that's correct?
Yes.
And once
I
again, referencing another very historic work here, Lightning Field. Is that right?
right.
Yes.
Okay, that's the lightning fields. And I look a lot at the dichotomy of what we're offered here in America and what we do with it. So this is a very kind of typical 90s kind of look. So I'll let you all think about what this means.
Actually, that was something that I noticed as well when I looked at this painting the first time. Like, oh wow, that this is, you can kind of tell it's painted in 1998. But was that something you were going for when you were painting it, or was this, oh, this is just what someone wears when you painted it?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
The clothing style of this mannequin, were you going for a timely look in the fashion choices that you
I think, quite frankly, I think it was just formal.
It's just formal.
Yeah, I needed that little bit of red up there. And he's supposed to look a little silly because we're all kind of silly. But then we're dealing with some pretty serious energy from the sky, right?
That's very true. Yes.
Heartthrob. We all have a heartthrob, right? We all try and create our own love, right?
And this mannequin is not changed down.
No.
He
No.
has a little bit more freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is the choice of the mannequin? Is it the well, I suppose what I see in the mannequin is the neutrality of him, that we can all see ourselves in this somewhat neutral figure.
That's pretty much it. I did them for a while and I didn't want it to be too gimmicky and keep, but it's a means of thinking about things universally. Let's go back to the last one. I want to say something about the last one. This one's called Eigen Tour. I speak a bunch of languages because I've been traveled a lot, and it means doorway to self in German. Okay. So we have, and obviously it's autobiographical. A lot of the work's autobiographical but the issues are universal. And we have a little Rembrandt up in the corner. I always like Rembrandt. Okay, go ahead.
Watching over.
Yeah, go ahead. So here we have the Perot mask. Man in Balance. It's autobiographical.
Actually, tell us a little bit about the Perot mask, because I hate to display any ignorance, but I was not familiar with the Perot mask as being, what the definition was, what the history of the mask is.
Well, it's I think it's early 18th century mask they use in French theaters, I remember. But in postmodernist 20th century art, which is, now that I'm older, that's what this is, because I made it so long ago. He represents kind of the sorrowful gesture. And this goes to something that interests me since I was in high school, and it goes to Yeats, Butler Yeats, the Irish author that investigated self and anti-self, and how you kind of investigate self to create another synthesis by means of sacrifice. Kind of sacrifice the old self via deliberate adoption of a mask, and you strive to become something else. So this type of thought is probably in a lot of the work, and even a lot of the earlier works in the 80s that no one's ever seen, or not here. So it has to do with this investigation of self. goes back to Immanuel Kant, Hegelian dialect, where they kind of solve the Nietzschean dilemma of the constant circle of his thing was the camel to the lion to the child, Nietzsche, and Hegel, this is investigation of self. And so he went thesis, proposition, antithesis, synthesis, right? So it's a matter of self-understanding and self-revelation, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah.
So,
Well, very complex explorations of self and identity,
right.
your own personal and the viewer, the interpret.
Right. So here we have Buffy and Skippy at the museum, which is the title. This is in a museum back east. And then we have Prometheus hanging off the. I was in the De Young and saw this Thomas Cole painting. And there are a bunch of people standing there trying to figure it out. And that's how I got the idea for the painting. And Prometheus, invented fire and was punished for it, and then chained to the mountain by the other gods. And I forget, a bird came and would eat his liver every night, and then it would come back the next day. Yeah, there's the coal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I used it, because it's the juxtaposition of different realities, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what we do with it, right?
Yeah.
If this makes any sense to anybody.
It makes sense. And I mean, the reference is incredible between those two artworks. I do like seeing the two.
Right. So here's Popeye, right? Who is stronger than anybody, but he's trying to figure out his own reality too. And this is called title of the painting was called Waiting for the Waves of Mara. And I speak some Asian languages and have studied Buddhism and Hindu philosophy. And Mara is the goddess of kind of deception or delusion. So again, we're back to it's the struggle, right?
Yeah.
And then there's that's about as much as I can say. And I'm a surfer too. So. Okay.
All right. Well, that is just, it's really inspiring to be able to hear your inspirations generally for creating the work, but to just know how to contemplate these works and see one's self in the creation, in the imagery of each one of those. And I can only imagine that the actual physical act of creating them is very, very contemplative, with the careful, delicate handling of materials.
Well, that's something I wanted to say. They're not easy to make. They take forever.
Yeah, how long does it take to make one of those artworks?
Several weeks to a month, sometimes a couple months.
How long would that be working every day?
Sometimes I'm on a burn. I work 4 or 5, 6 hours a day. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 days a week, depending what else is going on. But they take a tremendous amount of physical work.
Yeah.
And you can only make them so much for so long, and then you can't make them anymore.
Does it just feel like you're overworking the subject or overworking the canvas?
No, your body.
Your body, yeah, okay, yes. The physical act.
Yeah, the physical act. I have my thumb is
oh my God.
I have terminal arthritis in my hands.
Wow.
So.
And you don't happen to be ambidextrous. You can only paint with one hand. That's a shame.
Yeah, no, I can still paint, but it takes a physical toll. They take a lot of work. I'm not complaining, but so.
And do you work on more than one at a time, or do you just try to
Yes.
focus? Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Usually two or three, and I get them to different stages. And the hardest part really is creating the idea that excites me, because I'm not going to make anything unless it really interests me. I'm not going to paint jockeys or surf pictures for a market. These are mostly, I don't really make decadent paintings anymore that are just pretty. So there's that. And then I switch back and forth. Sometimes you get to an impasse. As my father taught me when I was a kid, he said, stop where you feel good and then come back when you want to approach it. So
Yes, yeah, that definitely always helps, taking some time away when you feel like you've been working a problem to death and it's not going
mhm.
anywhere. Just taking a step back. I mean, both visually with artwork and really anything that you're attacking. If anyone has questions for Mark, you want to just throw them in that Q&A or throw them in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. And I do have one last question for myself. So what is next for you after this show? Are you working on any particular projects, or are you just continuing to create those works 3 months at a time?
Yeah, it's really a matter of being inspired with questions and ideas that are reflected from our current spaces, that we can all relate to all different people worldwide. So there's plenty to work with. So it's just an extension. I don't think I'm going to start painting impasto abstract paintings. So,
I don't really see that happening either.
no, not right now. I like good abstract painting a lot. So
I do know that you travel frequently and you're about to take off again, and you live part-time out of the country.
yes, we've had a home in Thailand for years, and I used to live in Indonesia. And then I have good friends and a collector base in Scandinavia. So I speak Thai, and I've learned during the COVID lockdown, I've taught myself Swedish, not too bad, I guess, already. And so I'll go back on the road, and it's during those trips that you can get some really good ideas for
Now, do you
painting.
actually paint while you're traveling, or do you do
I,
just
I,
sketching? Or?
I do in Thailand
Mm.
because I have a workspace there, but not, it's too hard to, it takes too much congregated focus and physical space. You can't, it's, people think, oh, you're going to go paint. Oh yeah, I'm going to paint in my hotel room while I'm jet lagged. And it doesn't really work like that, but I do drawings and take photographs.
Get your inspiration
Yeah.
from your travels.
Yeah. And then come back and coalesce them. And a lot of times I'll have an idea and I'll use the idea 4 or 5 or 6 years later.
I like that. Now, one of the questions that came through from Jenny is that, do you keep a journal of any thoughts or concepts? Do you keep any of your ideas in writing to express in your artwork?
I do, but it's pretty private, Jen.
Oh, you're not going to break it out and read it to us right now?
No.
Oh, dang. No, and I think that's a helpful exercise to really get things, give them a physical reality by putting them in writing.
Yep.
Yeah. And a question that came through early on when we were talking was, so during your time in Russia, how did that impact your thinking as an artist, or were you painting or creating at that point?
Okay. I wasn't in Russia.
Your dad.
It was my dad that was in Russia in 59. And he represented the government and was the first cultural emissary, basically, to try and break the Cold War. So heard a lot about it from him. He was gone 6 months, and there was a lot of drama about it because it was kind of dangerous. But no, I wasn't there. But I've traveled all over. So if that's the answer to that. It was my father that was there, and I was a little boy.
Yeah, yeah. So did you ever actually have you traveled to Russia?
No, my mother went there, and many years later, it was kind of better that we didn't go there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
during those days.
Now all of the works, the historical works that are in your artworks, are those all works that you have seen in person?
You mean?
Well, like such as lightning fields. Have you been up to lightning
Yes,
fields?
yes.
And so are all of them works that you've actually seen and in the collections around the world?
In situ,
In
absolutely.
situ, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen almost all the Vermeers in the world.
Wow.
There's a few in Russia I haven't seen. And we've pretty much, my wife and I, she's a culture vulture and she's got developed a really good eye. And we've hit all the museums. We went to the Venice Biennale. We do contemporary art world stuff. My core interest is the classics, but I like good contemporary painting too.
Now that would be interesting. Does your wife's tastes diverge significantly from yours, or is she also into the classics?
She appreciates and loves the classics as well and has a good understanding of them. She is interested more in performance art than I am, and installation, because of what she does in her work. But no, she's on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
yep.
So for
Oh,
now, we can see your work at Oceanside Museum of Art through September 19th. And this is a show that was at Sekoot before. About half the works were at a
right,
show in Sekoot before it came over to the museum.
right. That was in 2017, I think.
Yes.
And they were wonderful down there to work with.
Now, Sekoot in
Español.
Tijuana.
They were great. Yeah, they were just fabulous people to work with, and they had a beautiful, it was just wonderful. So that's kind of how you guys saw it.
That's right.
And then I kept painting, and we borrowed some paintings back and so forth and so on. So.
Yes, you did get to create. I remember you were working like a madman to create
Kept it going.
Paintings to put into our space. Yeah. Yeah.
So are there any other questions from anybody? And thank you everybody for coming and listening to me yak. I hope I made sense to you all.
It was a delight, Mark. It's always really fun to talk to you and just hear your perspective on the incredible world we live in. It's a lot to think about and process, and that these kinds of contemplative, thoughtful works can help anyone think through these kinds of things. So I love it.
It's always good to keep our eyes open and our minds open.
Keep your eyes and your minds open, everybody. You heard it from Mark.